All right, part two with Jim Pugh. That rhymes. So we're talking about Chicago, and then you were how old when you moved to California?
Well, it was like right after high school. I mean, the first person I think I played with of note was Luther Tucker.
Oh, really?
And I played with him at a country roads on Irving.
Now, do you remember what year?
74.
Was this with was Gary in the band, Gary Silva?
I don't remember. I don't really. There was some guy who I think was from France playing guitar. Obviously, it wasn't Paris Slim, but there was. I didn't know any. They were kind of like Marin guys,
right? That's how Tucker always.
But I didn't think it was particularly
right.
They thought they were great. And
of course they did. So. Yeah, they were playing with Luther Tucker.
You know, they were from Marin. They were playing with Luther.
Yeah, no, I know. The best band I remember seeing Luther with back then was he had Gary and Stu Blank.
Well, that would have been.
And that's a good band. Yeah.
You know, the thing
Elvin
is,
was
sort of typical of the way that I am. And I remember talking to Luther, and he was nice to me, although they tried to stiff me. I think he was managed by some guy. But anyway, it was like there was, you know.
Why am I not surprised?
You know, but what I was going to say, I said, you know, I have this Otis Rush record, and you should do one of those songs. He goes, well, okay. He had a way of talking. You can do it.
Yeah.
You know, well, and he goes, well, maybe I probably should. You know, no, I don't know that record. I went home and looked at it, and he was on it.
I was
telling him to play a song that's on a record that he's on. Idiot. But anyway,
that's great. And then I remember also that you were telling me Dottie's Stardust Lounge in San Francisco, that Charles Brown had a gig there.
He didn't. He would come in. His picture was on the wall. And he would come in and play organ, as you know.
Was he just sitting in?
Yeah, he didn't have a gig there.
Okay.
But he would come. They were friends.
Right.
Had been. Lewis Madison was the organ player there, who was the guy who had been in the Famous Flames.
Right.
And he was actually one of the first organ players that I really listened to. A lot. There were a lot of great organ players at that time in San Francisco, but he was one of them. In people later on, it's a typical thing. Later on, when he played at Eli's, he was kind of a little bit around the bend. But when he played, at Dottie's, he seriously could flat out play tempo bebop.
Wow.
Yeah. No, he could really, and then go into. You know, I Stand Accused, but with a big, huge organ version of it and sing it. It was tough. It was really tough. So
she had a great act too.
She did. She could do a thing with her butt cheeks.
Oh yeah, she'd do the tempo thing.
Right.
Yeah. So you ended up at Larry Blake's, I want to say within... Was that about 78?
No, it was later on.
Was it later?
I started playing with Elvin, I think like in 81. And then I had gotten married and had a kid, and I kind of went back and forth, and I stopped. I only played with Elvin for like 2, maybe 3 years. Mm-hmm. And then, and I didn't really know any of those guys that were in that band, in the rap band. Or I didn't know any of those guys that played with Elvin. I mean, I met all.
Oh, really?
Some of them I kind of knew. I knew Tyler because he used to play with. I knew of him because he played in Gideon and Power. But so it's one of those weird kind of slightly.
Was Carl in the band at that point?
Yeah,
Carl Severin.
Yeah, I went to Blake's on a Thursday night, and I don't know what it was, but the guy who played piano,
Clay Cotton,
right? He sort of at the end of the night. He was no longer playing in the rap band, and I was.
Right.
It was, and I played, and I started playing on Monday nights with you. Was almost.
Yeah,
I played Thursday night, and then I came back and played on Saturday, and then I played on Monday. I didn't start thinking about money until I was married and had a kid. You know,
right.
And
Because that's kids. When it becomes crystal clear.
Right. Yeah. I mean, sort of. And then I didn't really start thinking about it until I got a mortgage. I mean, once you get a mortgage, then the game is kind of over.
Right.
The only money I've ever made really is from buying and selling houses that I own.
Really?
Well,
Wow.
yeah.
Right.
So it's like that.
So the other guy I know you're with for a long time was Chris Isaak.
Yeah, I was. Well, that's
You said that was about a decade.
That was about Kenny Dale Johnson. I
Right.
don't think it was. It might have been. The last record I played on him was the Christmas record. Yeah, it was maybe right around that.
And then
That was
Etta
in the early
was
2000s.
was Etta about a decade? Etta James.
Well, that was from right around the time it started out being with, was the kind of the Rat Band. And that was in the early 80s.
Right, I remember
and
that.
And then after a while, she started to have her own band. It was kind of an amazing story.
So she was kind of like at the point when she started playing with the Rat Band, she really didn't have a group, did she?
No, she used different groups.
Right.
She was one of those. There's a lot of people that have done it that way. She
Yeah.
had sort of musicians all over, and then she started to carry certain musicians and pick up other ones.
Mm-hmm.
And then after a while, she had a band that was basically, it was a lot. You know, it's interesting because there was a lot of Bay Area musicians, even though she lived in LA and worked with all those LA musicians.
Right.
She really was sort of, in some ways, of San Franciscan more than she was anything.
Well, she was from there, right?
Right, but you would figure that she would have, you know.
Being in LA for so long. Yeah.
It's an interesting combination. I mean, she had, that's where I started working with Mike Finnegan.
Ah, right.
He's the only organ player I've ever, he's the only keyboard player I've ever worked with. Usually when there's two keyboards, I play organ and the other person plays piano. But with him, I played piano and he played organ.
So you guys were always on those instruments.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, interesting.
I juggled playing with Chris Isaak and Robert Cray, because Chris just sort of said, look, whenever you don't have a gig with Robert, just send me tell me and I'll send you a plane ticket. And there were times when I was like I'd be on the road with both at the same time and going back and forth. Because he would play without a keyboard player. Yeah. And then eventually, it took him a while. I think that's because I kept telling him, I said, you know, you can get someone to do this for you full time.
Right.
You don't have to,
right.
There's no mystery about it. He's another guy. He's a really smart guy. He's a great guy. And Kenny Dale Johnson, who you know I'm friends with. Yeah. And, you know, he and I are friends. We're kind of like, it's pathetic. We talk like.
Yeah, I think we both knew Kenny before he was even playing with Chris.
Oh, yeah.
Isn't that right?
For sure.
Yeah.
And, you know, I talk to him 4 or 5 times a week. 4 or 5 times a day. Okay. Yeah, I wouldn't have for years.
Tell him hello.
For sure. He's done that gig because that started in the early 80s.
Right.
So yeah, in fact, I remember after an A's game one time, I went and saw you. He was driving, and we went to Eli's and saw you play.
Right. Well, he was one of the first Texans I think I met that had moved to California. So it was kind of like, you know, kind of a big deal when you meet somebody, a working musician from Texas.
I'm in a band now that I'm the only guy that's not from Texas.
Really?
Yeah.
Now who's that?
The Phantom Blues Band.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, because I'm blanking on the
Tony
name.
Bronigal.
Tony
Everybody
Bronigal
has their
Texas.
own way of. That's the other thing that's really interesting about blues is everybody has their own way of playing it, and everybody thinks that they're right. You know, so I mean, that's
and you better get a rhythm section that feels right about each other, huh?
Well, sure.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's interesting how people like. I did a gig recently where somebody, and it was with a band, a big band, and they'd written out "Sweet Home Chicago," and it was one of these like 10-page charts, you know. And the guy, a very studious-looking guy, the bass player, goes, "Well, Jim, I understand you know something about this music. Now, if there's anything that you can tell me to do that will make it more authentic, let me know."
Did that work?
And I go, you see how at the end of every 12 bars it goes da 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 da. He goes, yeah.
Toss that.
Don't ever play that again in your life.
And don't go da 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 da.
Yeah, you could leave oh God.
That's funny. Yeah, that is a big no-no, all right.
Well, it's just something you get kind of tight.
Yeah. So So basically, you were on the road with Robert until Robert Cray until you were 60.
Yeah, I mean it was.
So you're talking a lot of road stuff.
Yeah, it was from my early 30s to just about 60. I think it was within months of my 60th, weeks of my 60th birthday. Now that you think about it, I think it was.
Yeah. And so when you left that gig, that's kind of when you kind of went, time to change things.
Well, I realized I have enough of what little sense I had. I realized that nobody wants a 60-year-old piano player. And also, I just wasn't sure I wanted to get in the back of a bus and ride around doing what I'd done. I'd become pretty cynical and kind of burned out on the whole thing. Mm-hmm. And I had been for a while. I did that gig probably, according to them, probably 10. And it was very nice. Robert was very, very considerate about the whole thing. I became a pain in the ass. But when I got done, I really tried to focus on it's real silly, but when you get in a position, I mean, I was 60 years old. I had a mortgage. I still had kids in the house. I had things I had to, I had to figure stuff out. So I sort of hit on this idea of starting a record company, mainly with the idea that I was going to do something that I had a passion for. And I was trying to do, really, there was a certain amount of forethought. I tried to make sure that I only did the things that I wanted to do and could do, and not do the things that I couldn't do. And by that, people go like, well, you give the artist 1,000 CDs. That's so
that's
great.
A good deal.
Yeah, that's a great deal. But you know, the thing is that they go, that's really great you do that. And I go, no, actually, it's because everybody I know that has a record company, they either owe money or they're owed money. And I can't keep track of anything.
Right.
I don't want to do that. I don't want to be in the business. And the way that Little Village is set up, the artist is responsible for all of those things.
So do they pretty much do their own ads and that kind of thing?
Well, no, the promotion and all that.
You guys do the
promotion. Oh, yeah. Okay. No, there's, and I book gigs and, some when I can.
You kind of do showcases and things like that.
And music and the festivals. And there are opportunities. And now we're doing sort of different NPR kind of radio programs.
It seems like you're able to work that.
Yeah, so
have you guys had any luck with Grammy nominations or anything like that?
We haven't gotten a Grammy nomination yet. No. And that's funny too, because the first record I ever produced was the Gospel Hummingbirds. It was a quartet, and that got nominated for a Grammy.
And that was Blind Pig.
And that was Blind Pig. Right. And back then, and then every record I did with Cray, and I produced a few records for Cray that got nominated too. I always kind of like just figure, well, it'll be anybody could get nominated.
Well, that's a label thing though. There's a definite label.
Well, Blind Pig got nominated.
That's what I'm saying, because I got nominated on a Blind Pig record.
Well, I don't know how they did it.
I think they had some kind
of... At that time, though.
They had some kind of...
At that time, I don't think there was any other record. No, they said that the only one was Roy Rogers and Norton Buffalo that had been nominated. But anyway, the Grammy nominations are great. Winning a Grammy, I've done that. I've got one. I only have one Grammy. God, this shows what an asshole I am. I only have one Grammy, and so what I do is, in the summertime, is
it for Cray?
Yeah. And you have to be in order to get a Grammy, you have to be the artist, and so it was the Robert Cray band. So they gave all of us. Right. So anyway, in the summertime, I use it as a doorstop on the front door. People come over and they walk in, hey, is that a Grammy? I go, oh, that. It's like, what do you
Maybe you should just have it on your kitchen table where the bills are.
Right. It's like, what are you going to do? I mean, there's people, you go to people's houses and they got 30 of them.
They got gold records all over their walls.
Yeah, it's a vanity wall. And I sort of did that. When my kids were growing up, I did have a vanity wall because Deborah insisted that they at least be able to have, if they couldn't have any pride in knowing me personally, they could at least look at the wall and go, I guess he's done something.
Well, here's something I'm curious about. So being on the road all that time with your wife at home taking care of the kids, how much guilt do you think gets into that?
Oh, I'm not sure who's got the guilt.
You.
Why, for being gone?
Yeah.
Well, somebody told me, Wayne Jackson told me early on that, if you're there for your family when you're, like if I came home and immediately split.
Right.
Then that would have been bad. But
so you're saying you wouldn't do that?
No, I supported my family, and the interesting thing about the Robert Cray Band was for a long time, I was the only person in the band that wasn't a military brat. That kind of life. And actually, I have kind of an admiration for people that grow up in that life, because I think there's a lot of techniques and things that they learn how to get along. Mm-hmm. They know how to figure out, how to meet new people.
Right.
And all the things, how to find some place to eat,
Right. Kind of real basic stuff that you have to have if you're moving from place to place.
And it's the same thing with my family. I think I've been really fortunate that my kids have, I'm very happy. And they are, and my wife is. Now, but there certainly is a lot of baggage, you bet.
Well, that's, I guess, what I'm saying, because I know that's definitely the case with me to a certain degree with my kids and my wife and so on. But it sort of comes with the job, doesn't it? Yeah.
And I don't, I've been fortunate that, like when I was home, I would, and there definitely, Cray doesn't, I think even when he worked a lot, it was probably, you were gone 6 months out of the year.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is.
Yeah.
You're around 6 months out of the year.
Right. So that's a lot better than some.
Yeah. Well, there are a lot of people I know that take their kids to childcare at 6 o'clock in the morning.
True.
Come and pick them up at 8 o'clock at night.
Right. That's pretty awful. Yeah. Yeah, that's pretty awful.
I didn't do that at all. So.
Well, so back to Little Village. Did you come up? How did you come up with that name? By the way, I already know. I think, but you have kind of a double meaning on it, don't you?
Well, sure. I don't really know. I don't know. It wasn't so much the anecdotal part of it, although that was part of it. I think part of it was the idea. I realized early on, as we all know, that people who are known are not necessarily, there's plenty of people around that are musicians that nobody ever hears the music.
Right.
And so I tried to, from that point of view, and to make it that kind of thing, that we would do that. And I'm trying to do something really small. I'm not trying, it's amazing if you take the profit out of the music business, you really are free to experiment with things that you wouldn't be able to do otherwise. I've done teenage mariachi in Bakersfield. We got a record coming out in Tagalog that's these 3 Filipino-American women. It's beautiful. And Aki Kumar, the whole thing with Aki Kumar.
Aki's blown up.
With, singing songs in Hindi to blues sort of inflected, that whole thing, that would never happen with a record company.
No.
And so there's a lot of stories. The great thing about Little Village is, first of all, it's like I give nothing but credit to people like Kid Anderson and to Rick Estrin and Mike Kappas and all the people that helped.
Strachwitz? How about
Strachwitz, as you probably know, I don't know about your relationship with Chris Strachwitz, but he never really gave me the time of day.
Well, he kind of did. He kind of did every other day.
Yeah, he was sort of a grumpy old man.
He was a curmudgeon.
He didn't.
But he could be fascinating to talk to.
Oh no!
If you got him on a good day, he was fascinating.
The last few years of his life, and when I had started Little Village, he was very, very helpful to me.
Yeah,
and really inspiring. He was really like, "This is really great that you're doing this. This is fabulous."
That's wonderful.
And at the same time, he would say horrible things about other people. He was really very nice, and I went to some dances with him, and I'd pick him up at his place. And so that was really, he was one of a lot of people. But there's like the real nuts and bolts of Little Village it doesn't have that much to do with me. I've been lucky to sort of been a good judge of character. See, Mark, I'm friends with you. I have good sense of things. No, I'm really lucky because there's more on the horizon, and I've sort of developed this thing that originally all I wanted to do was play and produce records, and I don't produce records so much anymore, and I kind of don't even play that much anymore. I've sort of gotten into the part of the business that I swore that I didn't want anything to do with, and that's kind of board governance and development. And
right. But, you know, those are great skills to have.
Yeah.
I mean, in music, it's a very rare thing for actual musicians to get involved in the nuts and bolts of the business.
Well, it has been, you know, we've done, I think it's going to be, we've done in less than in 9 years, 9 years, we've done 70 records.
That's amazing.
Somebody told me today.
Yeah, that's really amazing.
Brett from Living Blues told me that's more than Alligator does in a year. But it's also, it's not held to the same standard. And so it's not quite the same thing. But all you need to do is help people a little bit, and it makes a difference. There are plenty we use as a metric if somebody goes to somewhere else and gets a real record deal. Chris Isaac did.
Yeah, or Chris Kane, you mean.
Chris Isaac.
Chris Kane.
Chris Kane. And there's other people too.
Yeah. Well, you did a record on, you did the record on Ron.
Ron was somebody who, unfortunately, it was just a little bit too late because
Ron Thompson, yeah.
I was, you know, he, of course, along with yourself, I went back into the 70s with him. Mm-hmm. He was very, very talented.
Great artist, yeah.
Yeah. And so that's kind of, you know, it is. I've done a fair number of records.
Did you do a record on Fillmore Slim? I'm trying to remember.
No, I couldn't justify. I got up. It was sort of the board of directors, and it was also. I mean, I'm working with children's groups,
right?
And the idea of
I got
the biggest pimp in the world.
Yeah, no,
you can't do that. You know,
I was going to say Tia Carroll. You did a record with,
yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Did was John Blues Boyd one of them? Mm-hmm. I'm just trying to think of the blues ones right at the moment.
Oh, well, there's
Ron, Chris Kane.
Wee Willie Walker.
Right. Yeah.
And now
Alabama Mike, right.
And then Marcel Smith has done sort of a soul.
Right. And then you did H.K. Harrell.
D.K. Harrell.
D.K. Harrell.
And I did
D.K.
Mary Flower.
Really?
Yeah.
Now, she's been around a long time, right?
Right, but I just thought that it's not a matter of, you know,
no,
it's the very old and the very young. I mean,
it's more the idea of somebody that deserves a platform.
Well, it is that, but it's also somebody that somehow has a story that's somewhat compelling. Because I don't think being really good at what you do is in the music business is enough. I think you have to. Or at least I think that in order for me to be able to help, for Little Village to help, there has to be some kind of underlying story that they can promote themselves with as well. And it has been, Marina Krause was a woman who was an R&B singer we did a record with.
Oh, okay.
And then she decided on her own to do a record in Spanish. And she really was this singer with this, I think it's fair to say, this transformation of where she came to realize who she was from doing, because she grew up in a house where you weren't allowed to speak Spanish, like a lot of people, I'm told, in the United States.
Yeah. And
actually the similar thing, I have to say, was that way with Aki Kumar.
Right.
Where it was this sort of ambivalence and tormented of, am I an American or am I an Indian, you know, or what am I?
I remember that whole thing really clearly.
And this comment, it has, you know, the lasting the effect of it has had on his life. And I'll tell you, I did gigs with him where there were expats from India that we would do parties for, and they would just go nuts. I mean, they wouldn't just go nuts.
Yeah.
They would become overcome because here's something they're familiar with.
Right.
And here's something they're familiar with, and you're combining the two, and they really felt a part of it. Yeah. And I love that kind of thing. It's like, you can have a month at Albert Hall, take it, I don't want it. I'll do this kind of things. And it's happening. If I stop and think about it, it happens over and over again. So that's a big part of it.
Well, the incredible thing about Aki, because I watched him go from, you know, Tip of the Top, which was like a small blues band. And then all of a sudden he kind of, I think him and Jason Ricci got together and he started talking about this idea he had of doing the Bollywood.
Well, that's an interesting thing because actually, according to him, I was the first person that he talked to about doing it.
He was definitely talking to Jason.
I actually talked him into doing it, but
Did
that's
you?
okay.
Well, I know. Jason
this is
was
also the part where I don't take credit for.
Well, Jason was definitely.
I'm sure.
Yeah, he was very much.
The great thing about nonprofit work too is that it doesn't make any difference if it sells 5 records or 1 million records, because I don't own any of the records.
Right.
It's not going to make any difference in terms.
They're making the money.
No, they enjoy the success.
Yeah. Well, the big thing I got from Aki was that he was kind of at this place of, do I want to try to do this American art form, being somebody from India, or do I want to bring part of me into the whole thing?
Right.
And that was the crux of where he was.
Well, that's part of, I'll tell you, that's part of the thing that I tell people, the prospective artists with Little Village. I said, look, this is the first time and maybe the only time that a record company is going to say, do whatever you want.
Do whatever you want, right.
Really do it. The more because, I have people coming to me and they say, well, I have a blues band, and I have a corporate dance band, and I have a jazz band, I have a swing band. Which one would you like? And I go, I don't want any of them. I only want you to do what, who are you? What are you? People don't, a lot of times, and I think Berklee School of Music and other places are responsible for everybody feels like they have to cover everything. When, as we know, it takes a lifetime just to learn one idiom. I'm still trying to figure out things about how to play blues. I certainly don't, understand that. So
the other guy, I thought it was Junior. You did a record on Junior Watson.
Oh yeah, no, that's right. And that was because of Kedar.
Was it because of Kedar?
Yeah. I mean, well, and the other thing that's happened with Little Village is that there are people that are like quote unquote sort of more established, that they don't want to deal with record companies. They're for whatever reason. I think Junior was kind of that.
Yeah, Junior's probably like that.
And Chris Kane, I should say, Chris Kane, when he made a record for Little Village, it was at a really probably a low point in his life, and from that, and you can ask Bruce, hey, look at Iglar, but he said, I can quote him, is that he would not have signed. He would not have signed Chris if he hadn't done a record for Little Village first.
Interesting.
It was sort of a way of him proving that he was capable of doing it.
Huh. Interesting. Wow.
And there's been other people too, sort of examples like.
Well, Gary Vogelson's another one you did a record on.
Yeah.
Or he did the record and put it out on.
I did. I played on it and I did it. I didn't produce it. He kind of produced it himself. That was really good. I mean, and I hope that it's done well for Gary. It's sometimes with people that are old, people that are our age, they just kind of go, oh yeah, fine, I'll take care of it from here. And nice talking to these.
Right.
He didn't, and it wasn't anything intentional. It's just like he knew what he wanted to do and he did it. There are people that I feel, I could have done a better job. The thing is, for as much as people poo-poo blues music, and it only represents 0.008% of it.
Right, it's tiny.
I'll tell you, there's a blues society in every town in America, and there are more periodicals and more award shows, and these people, we support our music. God, I can't believe I'm saying things like that, but it is true. The idiom really does, for right or wrong, really supports, it's very supportive. So if you're a great Americana songwriter like Maurice Taney, who we recorded, he's a vital part of Little Village and a brilliant songwriter, but man, it is a crowded field. And blues is crowded, but they give recognition.
You said there's more support,
there's more outlets for it. There's more fans. There's more organization. It's really got this infrastructure that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, compared to Americana.
Well, Americana is just it embraces a whole lot. There's huge numbers of people trying to do the same thing.
Right. Right.
It doesn't have the magazines.
Yeah.
Magazines are just, blues magazines are amazing, or blogs. There's just like, it's endless. And I'm sure that there is, but Maurice has done and Gary Vogensen really should have. He's got a beautiful voice, and he's a good songwriter.
Yeah.
So that record, that one was sort of one that got a little bit of what. I don't want to say it's not a success. I could have done a better job.
Well, if you're doing 10 releases a year or 9 releases a year, that's going to keep you busy.
Well, yeah, but a lot of these record companies, I think, spend a lot of time trying to get paid or trying to pay people or trying to keep everything straight. That's a big part of their business.
Right.
But I don't do that. I mean, I hire publicists. I hired, and everything. It's all kind of farmed out.
Mm-hmm.
It's worked out well, and it's continuing to, and we're sort of in the process of setting it up so that I can step away from it because I'm too old.
Really?
Well, that we're going to.
I mean, do you have kind of an apparatus already in place?
I mean, there's a board of directors, and now it's with the purpose of setting it up in such a way that the thing can run itself if I step away.
Wow.
We'll get another executive director.
That's pretty cool. Talk about some of the new people you're recording, because I knew this. Who's the woman from? I think she's from St. Louis.
Candace Ivory. Yeah,
Candace
Ivory. She's a professor, I believe, and she has an amazing lineage. She's a singer. She's related to, and I don't know enough about the idiom of that North Mississippi, whatever you call it.
Hill country music.
She's related to those people, and she's also related to Joseph Jarman, I believe, the guy in the Art Ensemble of Chicago. And she knows it. Is very knowledgeable about all the way through. And she's done a record, a tribute to. So I guess you could call it a tribute, but it's the music of Memphis Minnie. They're all songs that she had written, and we had hooked her up. I've been doing records with Charlie Hunter.
Okay. Yeah, I know who that is. He used to live in the Bay Area.
He lived in Berkeley. And he's very much a Berkeley guy.
Is he still there?
No.
Yeah.
He got a deal on Blue Note and moved to New York.
Wow.
And then interesting, Mark, you would love this because he was a real serious jazz bow. He plays bass and guitar at the same time, which is just remarkable. And he's done pop, not pop, but he did D'Angelo's Voodoo record, which was made 20-something years ago, but still is one of the most definitive and influential records that's been made in the last 50 years. But he's done all kinds of stuff, and I knew him when he was in Disposable Heroes of Hip-Hoperacy. So he's done rap and all that. But he moved to New York. Now he lives in North Carolina, and he lives in Greensboro. Somehow he fell into this thing of Blind Blake.
Really?
And he now says, these jazz bows call me up from New York and want me to come play at the Blue Note. And I go, nah, it's okay. I just want to stay here and learn Blind Blake.
Wow.
He's completely
That's so
gone
cool.
the other way around. Whereas
That is
most
so cool,
musicians learn blues and then that can spin out and play jazz. He has played jazz and is now spinning back. And
that is such a trip.
Yeah, it is. And so this record has
got... Blind Blake is not easy to play.
Not easy. And he also will tell you that you all have been playing it wrong. Well, it's I think from playing bass and playing guitar at the same time. Because there's this, he said, in order to play in the bars, you had to be able to play really, really loud. And you had to play really hard. Right. And there was because it was before amplification. Well, anyway, it's a fascinating thing. He made a record he's done 3 records for Little Village. One was this pedal steel, sacred steel guy, Deshaun Hickman, who I'm really happy to say he didn't know anything about blues. He didn't know anything really, or about, the BMAs or the Blues Blast. He's gotten nominated all the way. I don't think he's won, but he's gotten embraced by this whole other audience of music, as well as it's spilled over into the bluegrass community in North Carolina, which is very progressive.
Wow.
They've started, he's starting to appear on shows with them, and so it's just sort of blossoming out beautifully. We did a record with Charlie Hunter with Nick Clark, who I'm sure is somebody.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah, and that record has done really well.
Wow, I did not know that. Yeah. Is he playing Blind Blake type stuff on it?
No, he's not playing. No, this has got more. But it's definitely, it's singer-songwriter. They're all songs by Nick. He plays harmonica.
But it's Charlie Hunter backing him up?
Yeah, Charlie Hunter and a guitar player that he uses. I'm sorry, a drummer that he uses down there. That's just really, and it's a real interesting, I think North Carolina is a fascinating place, and Charlie's...
Does he live in Nashville or something?
He lives in Greensboro.
Oh, really? Okay.
I was spent a year ago. I went to North Carolina for a week and drove around and listened to all kinds of music.
Yeah, it's a pretty awesome state in terms of music. There's a lot going on.
There's a lot going on.
And my friend Bobby Radcliffe moved there, who was like a staunch New Yorker for like 40 years.
Right.
Yeah, Bobby Radcliffe from he's from D.C. originally.
Well,
yeah, he was on Blacktop.
There are a lot of people. I mean, New York is there. What is it? Have you ever been to Cary, North Carolina?
No.
Cary is kind of in the middle of the triangle, Raleigh, Durham.
Right.
And it's right in the middle, and they call it the containment area for relocated Yankees.
Really?
That's what it stands for. Well, yeah, there's a thing of where New York
That's great.
There are more New Yorkers in North Carolina than
That's a trip, man. I had no idea. Now, you did one that I thought was really fascinating on this woman that worked at in Richmond at the state park.
Oh, that was Betty Reed Soskin.
And she was like, how old?
She's 103. I think.
She's 103.
She was 100 years old. She was the oldest living park ranger the oldest park ranger in America. It's at the
and
Rosie
was that
River
like an
Museum.
oral history that you did?
Well, she had gone. Yeah, I conclude anything that can be recorded on it.
Yeah.
And now it's kind of
because she was fascinating, man.
Her thing, Mark, which you probably would find. We recorded a bunch. Or she had a bunch of speeches that she'd done for
I heard her on NPR by accident.
Right. No.
Yeah.
She's become she speaks at I don't know all those different kinds of press clubs and different corporate events.
Right.
She speaks but anyway, one speech she talks about because she's from New Orleans, but she was raised basically in Berkeley. But she said that World War II, that Kaiser shipbuilding went down into Arkansas, Louisiana, and Texas.
Papered it.
And there was something like 100,000 people that came to live in Richmond, Berkeley, and Oakland, mainly in Richmond, partially in Berkeley and Oakland. And she said that was really the beginning of the civil rights movement.
Yeah.
I mean, she's being kind of provincial about it, but it really, I mean, the way she describes it, it is because here are these people, close to 100,000 people that moved there. There's no real Jim Crow to speak of. Certainly not like there was in that part of the South. There wasn't that. So these people are riding to work every day on the bus.
Right.
They're eating in restaurants. They're having to figure out how to get along.
It's a whole different life.
And from that, and that's, to me, musically, I swear that's why when I came out from Chicago, and people said music in San Francisco, no, and I go listen as I go. And then I went over and discovered Mexican music and funk and gospel and all this stuff over there. And this convergence. I mean, really Little Village in terms of, we'd say that the life filled with diverse music builds empathy, and it makes for a better world. I mean, it sounds trite to say it. That's the great thing about music is you don't have to say it. You can just listen to the music. You can hear it in the music. But it really is Berkeley. Larry Blake's.
It is.
Really
it's Berkeley, absolutely.
I mean, I don't mean to
well, in a lot of ways, I think what you've kind of done is a bit of a carryover from what Strachwitz did.
Except that first of all, he was a
businessman.
He was a businessman. And the other thing is, I'm a musician, and I'm only looking at it from music.
And it's a different place to be coming from.
It's a different thing, and I don't want to own publishing either.
Right? I know because I know a lot of the inside scoop on that.
I base what I do completely on emotion, on the emotional aspect of music. I don't care about. So, I mean, people go, well, you're a curator. And I go, no, I'm not. Yeah. I'm just when making music.
You're just finding things you enjoy.
That's all. I'm collecting things.
And trying to get things
rocks
out
on
there.
the beach or something. Yeah. Shells.
Yeah.
That's all. And it ends up, I think, you know, so what started out as an idea, as like Mike Kappa said, that there's plenty of proof that this actually is working, you know, whether I say it or not, it is. It's proof. I don't have to prove it.
Right.
There is proof.
Yeah.
So,
well, I love the idea of like taking things that are interesting to you and putting them out there.
To the benefit of people,
yeah.
too. And there's that.
Yeah.
Well, you were at that party at Kid's house. I mean, in a lot of ways, those.
Well, I'm trying to do that with these podcasts. I mean, the podcasts for me are something I'm not making a dime on. Nobody that I'm interviewing is making a dime, but we're putting them out there.
Well, I'm definitely making a dime. I'm making blues money. It's still money.
Right,
Not
right,
Blake.
right. Yeah.
You know?
But my point is that for me, it's interesting, like talking to people like you or you know, whoever else I'm talking to, and putting it out there so people can find out about, you know, these stories, because it's all stories.
Absolutely.
Everything is stories.
And I have learned that you're absolutely right. And the ability to tell your story or tell a story is more important to people who might support you than it is anything else.
Yeah.
You know, it's not...
Yeah.
You know, somebody said, you know, there's not enough time left in your life, Jim, to learn QuickBooks. Put those things away. Nobody, tell me a story. Show me the magic. Don't show me those numbers. You don't have any idea what you're doing. I go, you know, all of a sudden, I'm in second year algebra again. Jim.
Well, I know it's got to be exciting for you to just have this kind of new thing that you're excited about.
It's great, and I'm very, very blessed. And I have a lot, like I say, I have a lot of talented people, and you know a lot of them, and support from people. So I'm real grateful. I was very close to becoming a bitter, cynical musician, and a lot of people probably think I am, but I'm not. I'm really inspired by things.
Right. That's great.
God, it ended up on a deal. Can I figure out a way to end up being really cool? You know?
Sure.
Like Charlie. No, I know. Do an imitation. Do Luther Tucker.
You know, you forgot I really wanted to do a record for you, and you never even bothered to call me up.
Wow, that's wild. Tell me, do Tucker.
But Sonny Rhodes would say, Jim Pugh, I gotta say, for all the bullshit you've been spouting, you're a pretty good guy.
You know, I've had that since I've gone bald and grown a beard. I've had people come up to me like Sonny Rhodes. I mean, he died before I had a beard, but he came up to me at one point and goes, Jim, I had no idea that was you. I'm so sorry.
That's happening with all of us.
I mean, I know. It's like people just go, I'm sorry, I didn't, you know.
Well, thank you, Jim.
Yeah.